and welcome back to another video. We have March ScrawlrBox here today. Let's get straight into it. It sounds a little bit like rattling pencils, so I'm interested to see what we get. Looks very colourful so far. And this is the featured artwork. That is stunning. That is truly beautiful. Really beautiful. I love all the colours and the texture in the face. That is gorgeous. So the featured artist is Jake Spicer. I hope that's how you say their name. I love to draw, and whenever possible I help other people to draw more confidently and competently through the books I write and through online and in-person classes. Very good. They have some socials there at the bottom. And then there is a discount code at the bottom here to get photo reference libraries. 25% discount. If I end up using that, that will be blurred out in this section of the video because I might want to use that before the rest of you. So very beautiful. Yes, it looks very much like pencils in here. So let's get straight into this. It is indeed some sort of Derwent pencil. Let's grab all this out, put that to one side. Alright, so our sweet for this box is no idea. I don't even know what that is. Let's have a look in here. Let's see what it says. It is a strawberry flavoured hard-boiled sweet with a sherbet centre. Oh, interesting. I will put my sweet rating at the top here, and if it is sour, I will add a sour rating as well. Very nice. We then have the vinyl sticker, which is a lovely snippet out of that artwork. A lovely, lovely snippet, actually. Very nice. Then we have two basic supplies here, both from Stedler. We have their eraser and their pencil sharpener. I actually really like these metal pencil sharpeners. I think they just feel way nicer than the plastic ones, so they're very nice to add to my collection. And then the supply itself, we have 6 fine art pencils, although I'm not going to read the box because sometimes I've had pencils in these boxes that are not related to the box themselves. So let's dig into this. Okay, see, this is what I'm saying. We've got 2 different types of pencils here. We have some Derwent Light Fast pencils and then a Derwent Pro Colour pencil. Very interesting. I'd like to see why we've got 2 different types of pencils. So we have in the Derwent Light Fast, we have the Sapphire colour, we have black, we have sun yellow and magenta, and then in the Derwent Pro Colour we have Spectrum Blue. So we have 2 blues that look very similar. Very similar at the bottom here, but not in the nib, actually. That one's the Pro Colour is very much lighter. Okay, interesting. I would like to see what the difference between those two are. Let's have a little look in the zine to see what this says about them. So here, lasting light fast. These colouring pencils are light fast, ensuring your work will stay nice and bright for longer. And they've given us CMYK. Okay. Very nice, I like that. Then the Pro Colour, it says, get your initial sketches using this pencil. Okay, so it's more of a pencil, coloured. That's strange. I'm interested to see what they feel like next to one another, whether they feel very much the same or whether this does feel like more of a graphite pencil. But it does look like you can erase this Pro Colour. So interesting. I'm excited to try that. Okay, so this is a little bit more about the artist. So I will have a read off camera. Then we have our Scrawlr tips. So I will read those as we swatch as per usual, and I'm sure that will explain a bit more about the pencils. Some more Scrawlr tips and how to test them out initially. Even more Scrawlr tips, a little bit behind the artwork and how that was created. Then the Scrawlr gallery, so this is artworks from 2 months prior. So this box was using the Faber-Castell liners and the Posca pen, and the Scrawlr challenge was Fantasy Forest. So there's some really nice ones in there. Some lovely takes on that. I can't actually remember what I did for that. Oh, I do. I did the trees, looking up at the trees, I think. Was that for this? I don't know. I don't remember. And then these are the top 3 for that box as well. Again, some lovely ones. This badge is really beautiful at the bottom here. Some lovely takes on that I very much like. Very nice. And then our Scrawlr Extra is a lasting impression. So this is about the colouring pencils and why being light fast is so important, which is very nice. And there's a few more artworks here that people have done from previous boxes. Very nice. And then this Scrawlr Extra is Movements in Time, about art movements and how they've evolved over the centuries. Very, very good. And then finally, our Scrawlr challenge for this box is Living Legend. Okay, interesting. So they're kind of, I'm assuming they're wanting us to go down a bit more of the portraiture route, but you could easily go down fantasy legends. You could go down anything really, but I'm more intrigued about the difference between these pencils. I want to read a little bit more about the light fast qualities of these, because it's not something, well, I obviously know what light fast is in art supplies, but I'd like to know more about these ones in particular. I'd like to test out the erasing of this pencil and whether you can erase both or is it just this pencil. I'm very intrigued, but I think this will be an interesting box and something that we can sink our teeth into. So let's see what we can come up with for Living Legend. Alright, we have a vast array of Scrawlr tips, from swatching as per usual to burnishing. This technique is achieved by building up multiple layers of pencil, working from light to full pressure until there is no sign of paper underneath. This also creates a sheen that is very difficult to work back onto. Burnishing is your final step. Quick tip, you can use the eraser to dull down the tone of your pencil to create more dimension. A light pressure will produce a light shade and a heavier hand will produce a darker shade. And then it also mentions pigment powder, so use any powder left from sharpening your pencils to create a soft blend colour. Press into the paper using your finger or a clean dry brush, which is quite interesting. I like that. It's almost like using a bit of a chalk pastel or something similar. Then they go on to using the pencils for different techniques, so hatching and cross-hatching, scrumbling, circling and stippling. So scrumbling I've never heard of. It's a type of doodling but with a purpose. It's a great way to add energy and texture to your work, applying tiny squiggles on top of one another in a circular motion to fill a space. Then there is impressing. Use this to create fine lines in your work. Etch into your clean paper using a needle, craft knife or even empty biro. Then grab your pencil and shade over your etching so that you almost have a bit of a relief but an impression almost. So that's quite interesting. Some very nice tips there. I did try and replicate, as you can see here, the kind of colour swatch to see how they would blend. They obviously mentioned these colours are CMYK and they should be able to be blended in to make almost any colour. That's what CMYK is. In my opinion, I don't think they're a true CMYK. I felt like the orange was quite difficult to achieve. I don't know, it's weird because I found the red very difficult to use. I thought the red was the hardest of the pigments to use, and I don't know whether that was influencing my the way I was achieving the orange. But I mean, it was achievable. I did achieve orange in my final piece, and you know, I think also just the way you're using this medium. I'm not the most familiar with pencil. I don't tend to do pencil only artwork. I tend to use pencil as an afterthought on my artwork to add texture or depth if I can't do it with paint. So it's not something I use very often, but it's always enjoyable to use. So I think if you know how to use a pencil, you probably can achieve most of the colours with those, but for me, I just couldn't. So before we get too far into the artwork, let me mention what I am doing here. I have recently been to Barcelona. If you haven't seen that vlog and you haven't heard me talk about it, which I'm not sure how you haven't, I recently went to Barcelona and it was an incredible trip. I'll let you watch that vlog so you know what happened there. There's some big news, but when we went there, we went to Gaudi's Sagrada Familia, and it's obviously still being constructed, but the inside is pretty much done and the stained glass windows are absolutely incredible. They're not really stained glass windows that depict something. They're a style, I can't remember what the style's called, but it's basically just mismatching different colours together and creating these amazing, colourful, bright stained glass windows. And the inside of the Sagrada Familia is just lit up with so much different coloured light. It's beautiful anyway. But I have a beautiful reference photos, and these colours really lent themselves well to this reference photo, and that's why I decided to do it. And it was quite a challenge because obviously we have the black colour, but I don't really have the kind of stony, like the more sandy stone type colour. So I did have to use a bit of artistic license and alter that a little bit and just kind of do what I needed to do. And I also altered the reference photo slightly. There was definitely a couple of columns in the way of this, kind of to the side, so I've had to make some of it up. So it's not an accurate depiction, but it's there or thereabouts. And I loved using these colours. So for the actual window sections, I used that burnishing technique that I read about a minute ago, where I was layering up the colours, and then finally pressing a little bit harder just to fix those colours down, create that lovely shiny gloss effect which a piece of glass would have. And then I kind of just finished it off with that and made sure there was no white of the paper showing through, and just made it look very different to the stone aspects. What I found with this is, obviously I'm depicting something that's meant to be very large, so I had to sharpen this black pencil a hell of a lot to get the details in the stone and all these fantastical little architectural wonders that Gaudi designed, and that was quite hard. My black pencil is definitely probably a third of the size smaller than the other pencils after sharpening it so often, and because this lead is so soft, even when I sharpened it to a fine tip, it would just break quite easily when I was trying to get that colour down in a nice sharp crisp line. But I think I managed it in most of the places, and it was very enjoyable. I really enjoyed adding the colour into the stone to kind of to mimic the sunlight coming through the stained glass window and then reflecting onto the stone and adding that colour to the stone. It was very, very lovely, and I really enjoyed using it. Like I mentioned in the beginning of the video, I was a bit confused as to why we received two blues. Yes, they are different shades of blue, but I was wondering why we had one specifically for the sketching aspect and one for the colouring. And I found the Derwent Pro colour, the one that they included for the sketching, was just that little bit harder. It allowed you to get those crisper lines without the tip of it breaking, like I just mentioned, and it was very nice to sketch with, to be honest. I really, really enjoyed it. But all of the colours, if you press light enough, you could erase with the Staedtler rubber eraser, but obviously if you pressed harder you couldn't erase it, like any coloured pencil. Like even a pencil, if you press quite hard, it's harder to erase. So it was kind of the same thing really. There was nothing too different about them, but like I say, I would say the lead was just that little bit harder in the Derwent Pro colour than it was for the Derwent Lightfast. I actually found it quite ironic that I was using the Lightfast for the use of doing a stained glass window. I thought that was quite funny. Anyway, just a very dad joke there, but it was very enjoyable to use, and I enjoyed layering it up these colours. And I actually forget how much I enjoy just doing art with pencils. I had a quick look through my art folder that includes all the artwork that I ever do, all my originals, and I have obviously a lot of ScrawlrBox art in there, and I found quite a lot of artworks that I've done from ScrawlrBox that were just pencil works, and I really like all of them. They're all very, very nice, and I forget how much I really do like it. It's quite a process, you know. With paint, you can layer up colours quite quickly. You can cover that white of your paper quite quickly, but with pencil, it requires a little bit more effort, a little bit more thought as well, because once that colour's down, it's very obviously difficult to lift up, whereas watercolours, you can add some water, lift up that colour, and then add a little bit more on top. So as you can see here, I actually darkened the green a little bit more than I would have liked. It's quite a contrast to that nice yellowy green that you have in the circle above it. So I used the eraser just to lift that pigment a little bit, and it also added a little bit more of that burnishing effect, which was quite nice. And then I went back over with the yellow just to bring a bit more of that limey green colour out in these. But it was quite fun. The stained glass windows at the Sagrada Familia are all so colourful, but they kind of flow with colour. You start off with one colour at the top and it flows down to another colour at the bottom. So I'd really tried to mimic that, and these colours were perfect for it. We obviously have the very greeny bits at the top, then we go a bit more blue and with a bit more green as well in the middle, then it goes down to orangey, yellow, red, and then down into a bit more of a deeper, richer orange and red. So it was really fun to do. It was really fun to get all these fine details in and try and shade enough to make it look like it's raised or sunken into the stone where required, and I think I managed to capture that quite well. once I had finished the main stained glass area, I just finished it off with a couple of extra lines around the outside, building up that brick kind of facade that pushes it behind a wall, basically pushing it into the wall. And so that required a couple more like almost column like bricks, circular bricks along the edges that added that depth in there, and it was quite fun to do. I really enjoyed that. I enjoyed adding in the brick lines. I wasn't going to do that originally, but I really do think it adds that realism that it needed to push those things back. This view is obviously looking from the bottom upwards, so it does get a little bit wider at the bottom, so it looks like it's not very straight on the page, but it is. It's just I'm looking at it from the bottom going up, and so the top is a little bit narrower because it is a lot further up and further away from the viewing perspective. Then, to finish it off, I wasn't really sure how else to do it because it just looked like a stained glass window in the middle of a page, which looked beautiful, and I did actually scan it in at this point because I was a bit worried I would ruin it with whatever I added on in the background. But I thought I would just add a flat wall, again, a little bit of artistic license to change that from the original image. But I thought it would look better and stand out a lot more if I just had it sunken into a very flat brick wall with non-uniform brick sizing, just to make it look a little bit interesting. So I used this ruler to add very equal sized lines, as rough as possible, going all the way around it, at the kind of ending at different points along the edge, so it wasn't very uniform, it wasn't kind of framed. And then I went in by hand, just drawing in the lines, making sure that the bricks were different sizes, you know, sat differently, and that worked really, really well. And then I just went in and started adding a lot of colour into those bricks because obviously the sun would be shining through that stained glass, and as I saw in person, it then reflects onto all the brickwork around it and adds that lovely glow of colour to them. So I wanted to make sure I did that, and I did about 2 passes of the colour over the bricks just to make sure that they really did have that nice glow about them. But this took me so long to do all these bricks, as you can imagine. There was a lot going for them, and then I added some texture with the black, and then again, like I say, I added more colour into those. But I hope you enjoyed watching this. I did enjoy these pencils. They were very lovely to work with, and again, like I say, I forget how much I enjoy just working with pencils and pencils alone, so I think I might try and incorporate that into some future artwork as well. Let me know your thoughts about what I have produced. Obviously, the Scrawlr challenge was Living Legend. Obviously, Gaudi is no longer with us, but I felt like the Sagrada Familia was a living representation of Gaudi, and it's still being constructed to this day, even after he has long passed, using his original designs with a few artistic flares. And I feel like this was a very good living representation of the legend who is Gaudi. So I hope you enjoyed it, I hope you enjoyed what I've produced, and I hope you enjoyed the box as well if you received it yourself. Let me know what you produced with the box for the Scrawlr Challenge Living Legend, and I hope to see you in the next video. Goodbye. Thank you.